right, everybody. Welcome to the September meeting of the Diamond Valley Writers Guild. My first question is the normal first question. Anybody have any writing successes, beginnings, endings, sales, anything you would wish to announce? Yeah, Kathy.
Yeah, I do. I published my book.
Yay!
Yes.
Mid-August on Amazon. And it has still been on the bestseller ranking after 6 weeks. And it was the #1 new release.
What's it called?
It's called The Boy in the Wagon. It's about my father's youth. It's published as a historical biography.
Okay.
I got to tell you, people, if you, it's a terrific piece of writing. She read it in our group, and it's quite moving, and it's really well written. So,
and I have to say, without the group, it would have been a poor excuse of a book if I had put it out the way it was.
So, anybody else have another success story of any kind you would like to share?
I published a short story on Amazon.
Wait, who said that?
Kathleen Osborne.
Oh, there you are, Kathleen. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I published a short story on Amazon. It was part of a class I took. And to write the short story and then publish it and do all the marketing and things like that. So, but it's on there for $0. I learned how to put it on there if you want to do it for a special price of $0 and how to self-publish it and everything. So I'm pretty excited about knowing how to do that now.
Oh,
That's great.
You got the world at your feet now. You can replicate
You can
that.
write your own ticket.
Yeah.
So I have a little sidelight story of sorts. So I published a short story on Amazon also, but my goal was not that. It was to do an audio recording of it, which I did, and it's on there too. It's called the short story, and the audio recording is called Like an Earthquake. And for new members, they were giving it away free.
Mm-hmm.
So my audio book was being given away free on Audible for a short period of time.
Yeah, but you know, Jim, if that results in you getting any new people subscribing to Audible, you get the $75 bounty.
Wow.
For each
I
new
don't think it's
person.
happened. At any rate, I must say that the only reason I did this, is that because either about 2 years ago, Lynne had done a presentation on Audible books, doing Audible books, and I decided I wanted to try it on my own rather than try to get somebody to do it on my own, which I did. And so I read it. It's my read. I didn't hire anybody, so it's a lot cheaper. And I just used the recording that comes with the Mac. So I didn't have to buy any kind of recording or equipment or anything. I already had a microphone and did it that way. And the first time they didn't take it, I had to I didn't have to redo the whole recording. I simply had to put the recording under different specifications, is all, their specifications. And they took it. Second time they took it. And it's been on there now for several months. And I just realized recently they had started giving it away free with new subscriptions, so I could choose it. Okay, anybody else have anything else? Yeah, Karen.
I have a question. I know there are several people in the group that probably know how to publish on Amazon, and I'm not one of them. And I just wondered if Kathleen is offering her services to help somebody do that, because I just wrote a short kind of memoir about my grandson and I could use some help. I don't think it's worthy of trying to go through the whole huge publishing process, but I think that would be a fun way to do it. So
Sure, Karen. You can give me your information or way to contact you.
you know what, I'll just private message you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Vicki.
Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Nikki.
Okay, right now, next up, unless somebody else, did I miss anybody that had something that you would like to say that you've
Yeah,
published?
I do want to say something. You know, I wrote this book, Middle-Aged Crazy, and I turned it into an audiobook. And it's a few years old, a couple years old, but I submitted it to a contest because it's still within the publication date window. And as part of that contest, which hasn't been decided yet, they offered to do a review for you. And so I got a 5-star review from this organization called Reader's Favorite. And I'm really happy with it because on Amazon, if you've got a book on Amazon, there's a place where people write reviews, but there's also a place where you could put in editorial reviews, and those show up right below your book on the book's detail page. So it's kind of an impressive thing to have if you have an editorial service or, you know, you've won a contest where they provide that kind of thing. So I was really happy to get it. And also the guy who wrote the review said that the audiobook he had listened to that rather than reading the paper book or the ebook. And he complimented the audiobook. And so I can use that in all kinds of marketing. So I'm pretty happy.
All right.
Yeah. Cool.
I was going to say that Kara has something that she told me the other day that was really quite a breakthrough.
Hi, Kara.
She's muted. You're muted.
Okay, yes. So when I joined the group, I think I mentioned this last time. When I joined the group, I'm working on my, I don't know whether to call it an autobiography or a memoir, but my story. And so it's also my first book I've ever written. So I finally wrote the end. During COVID, I wrote the end, which was a huge accomplishment. And now I don't know what to do with it. I just am overwhelmed with the whole, writing was one thing. Now I'm finding out that rewriting is a whole nother. And then the whole, I'm kind of stuck. So anyway, I need to join a group. I need feedback, definitely. So that's all I wanted to say was maybe you guys
All right,
can point
if you
me
would
in
like
the
to
right
join a
direction.
group, we probably have room on our Wednesday morning group if you'd like to join.
Yeah.
Would you like?
Yes,
Okay.
I would love to, yes.
Okay, if you send me your email address, okay? And
I have her email address. I can go ahead and get her yours.
okay, great. And then, but if you'll, Dennis, if you'll just send her email address to me, I'll put it on there. We meet from 9 to 12 on Wednesday mornings. Okay.
Okay.
There's 6 of us. Along that line, I just want to make an announcement to everybody. Some of you already know. Jerry Prager is part of that group on Wednesday morning, and we were meeting last Wednesday, and he didn't show up, and he's been awfully good about calling when he couldn't make it or whatever. And in the middle of it, we got a call from him, and he was in the hospital, and he had been riding his bike, and I don't know what he got hit or fell off. He broke his neck.
Oh dear.
And now Dennis has talked with him. I called yesterday, but I got no answer. He didn't answer. Have you talked to him since the operation, Dennis?
No, I have not, but I just keep him in your prayers.
Yeah, I contacted Dennis. Dennis was really good. He contacted the hospital. I actually talked with Jerry. That was before the operation. He was operated on yesterday morning, day before. I called yesterday. I couldn't get a hold of him. I wanted to see how he's feeling. They did say, apparently, according to Dennis, that he could be home as early as Monday, which is really. He also had a broken thumb. So they said he had a helmet on. Is that correct, Dennis? He had a helmet on.
Yes, I think so. And so he's on the mend, I hope, but we'll find out soon.
Yeah. So if the moment I find out, I'll let everyone know. I'll send out a little message to everybody once I know. If anybody else is interested, other than Kara joining our group, get in touch with me. It's JV Hit, J like in Jim, V like in Vicky, Hit, HITT, at hotmail.com. I'll put you on the list and you can join us. We have about 7 people and right now. If you want to join, please give me a call. Let me know. Okay. Next on the agenda for today is Cheryl about straitjackets. Cheryl?
Okay, I have no idea if, I know Ellen, I don't know if Ellen on here, but she's gonna send out a last call for submissions. Yesterday I talked to her and neither one of us can remember what we put for the deadline. I think it was October 15th. But my email went down, so I'm trying to recover that. So I don't know if she sent that out. So I'll just verbally.
She hasn't, but yesterday she said it was October 1st.
She did say, I know, she told me, I don't remember it that way, but maybe
That's
it was.
okay. I'm just letting you
Okay.
know that's what she told us yesterday. I talked to her yesterday, but it
Yeah,
may be she misstated.
Well, I know that she and I were trying to figure it out. So anyway, thank you. The other thing I'd like to say is Greg has put in a huge effort on the project for our book, The Best of Straitjackets. And right now it was taken to the board, and Ellen wrote up from the meeting, the last board meeting, Ellen wrote up the proposal and then sent it to me, and I added some things to it for the board to consider. And then as soon as Ellen gets that back to the board, I guess there'll be a special meeting of the board.
That's correct. Yeah, we'll have a special meeting. So we
Okay.
decide on, and we'll let you know then.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
And
that's
then I'll spread the news, and you can spread the news after that.
okay, right,
Where the decision is. Yeah.
right, okay. But it's a worthwhile project and it's awesome. So, and Greg just should be applauded up and down.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Greg.
So that's it.
That it? Okay,
I think
Cheryl,
so.
thank you. Okay, Sandy, where are you? Oh, wait, Dennis, you have a question?
Just a parenthetic note, if Kara could send me her email, because I've sent a couple and I don't know if you're getting them. So that's just would be helpful too.
Okay. All right, Sandy, we're going to start with the announcement for the elections, Sandy.
Okay, the Guild has a board of directors consisting of 5 people. The board meets 5 times a year in Hemet. All of the directors serve for a 2-year term. Each October, an election is held for the position whose terms are ending. This October, we will elect 3 directors: vice president, secretary, and member at large. If the idea of serving on the board interests you, you may nominate yourself or someone else at the October meeting. That's next month, folks. You will have 3 minutes to let us know why you're running. If only one candidate is nominated, the vote will be by voice. If 2 or more are nominated, we normally vote by paper ballot. However, in order to vote this year, the board will send an email to members to select their choice. As soon as the winner is declared, members and non-members will be notified via email. So if you're wanting to serve, that would be great. Please come attend our October meeting and either nominate yourself or someone else for one of those 3 positions.
Okay, we'll get back to Sandy in a minute for her tip. In the meantime, I'd like to talk very briefly about the October meeting, which is going to be a little bit different from our meetings. It's going to be similar to the August meeting, which is the poetry meeting, which people each got a chance to read a piece of their poetry. Well, for the October meeting, and I'm making this announcement because Jolynn was going to make it, but she's not here today. She couldn't make it, so she asked me to do this. The October meeting is for prose. So if you're writing a prose piece that you would like to read something of it, and it can, it should be fairly short. It does not have, it's self-contained, it's part of a larger piece, or it's self-contained, whatever. 750 words should be the limit. And of course, the author reads his or her own work. It can be excerpt, a short tale, an essay, a piece of a novel, can be anything along those lines. I'm going to send out a note right now. This is to where if you are going to would like to be involved in reading it, I'm sending a chat note right now to everyone, but I'll also tell you what it is. I'm giving you an email address to everyone. And let's see if I can get it up here. Okay. All right. Jolynne, JOLYNNE 1 at live.com. It's either live or live.com, I guess, is how you want to pronounce it. So Jolynne 1 at live.com. And you'll send her, if she asks you to send her the piece, and send it directly to her, and she'll contact you about fitting it in and so forth. The deadline for submissions is October the 15th. She says, I look forward to hearing from you. But Joe is the one who will be in charge of this. So if you have a piece that you would like to read, now I will send out this notice to everyone later on, okay? So you'll get it and you'll get the email in there. But if you want to get a jump on it, here's your chance to do so, okay?
Okay.
Anybody have any questions I can answer about that? No, okay. In that case, we'll get down to something really important here, and it's Sandy again. And Sandy, I'm going now is going to give us her tip, writing tip for the month. Sandy, it's all yours.
Thank you. The tip I have comes from a book by Jane K. Cleland called Mastering Plot Twists: How to Use Suspense, Targeted Strategies, and Structures to captivate your readers. And she talks about that plot twists are something unexpected and intriguing, but not opposite. Plot reversals are something unexpected and intriguing and are the opposite. And the third portion is moments of heightened danger that are unexpected, intriguing, but fraught with real potential or imagined physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual risk. So they're referred to as the TRDs, the twist, the reversal, and danger. To be effective, a TRD must simultaneously surprise the reader, increase tension, and reveal pertinent information about either the characters, the story, or both. These TRDs are workhorses for your story. They propel the story forward through action, dialogue, and description. They also control the pacing. And a recommendation is to either look at your own manuscript and see where you have twists, reversals, and danger. And that and danger doesn't really apply to like the murder mysteries or the thrillers. It applies to any book. And if not your own, look at a book that you really found good and see how those twists, reversals, and danger is applied in a book that you know.
All right. Well, thank you, Sandy. That was excellent. Anybody have a question you'd like to ask Sandy at this spot? I'm sorry. Let's see. I can't see anybody right now. Hang on a second. Anybody have a question you'd like to ask or a point to make?
Sandy, I do. Sandy,
Okay.
where could we read more about that from? Was it Sandra Cleland?
Jane
Cleland.
K. Cleland, Mastering Plot Twists. The cover
Okay.
has like a green spiral on the front of it.
Okay, thank you.
And that's just a part of one of the chapters, but the whole book is about working plot twists in.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Okay, now what I'm going to do now essentially is mute everybody, and except of course myself. And in a moment, I am going to unmute. Obviously Lynn, and Lynn, I've had you unmuted just now, so you have to unmute
Good idea.
yourself. There you go. Lynn is our speaker for today, and she's going to talk about NaNo Write Mo, and enlightened us and convinced us all that we should do it. So with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Lynn. I would appreciate if you would hold all your questions. I know you probably will have some. I would like for you to hold all your questions until we get to the end, okay? And it's Lynn's up.
All right, you guys. Well, I got a little glimpse of what your intentions are at the beginning of this. I asked who had already done NaNo Write Mo, which I used to think was pronounced NaNoWriMo, but I guess it makes sense, right? Some of you have already done it. Some of you are thinking of doing it, and some of you wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. But I am going to tell you today why it might make sense for you to do NaNo Write Mo. If you don't know, it stands for National Novel Writing Month, and it happens every November. It's kind of a marathon / social activity that people around the globe participate in. NaNo Write Mo actually started out and exists as a not-for-profit kind of an endeavor, and they raise money for literary purposes all around the world. Every year, about 250,000 people participate and actually write or try to write the 50,000 words that are required to consider yourself having won. They say if you've done the 50,000 words, you have won. So I'm going to tell you today some reasons why you might want to do it, and then I'm going to tell you my strategies for how to actually do NaNo Write Mo. So let me ask you this. Do you ever get bogged down in writing? Do you ever feel like you're never going to complete your work in progress? Do you ever feel like you're never going to make any money? Do you ever feel like you're not honestly a real writer? So how would you like to complete a novel by December 1st of this year? Wouldn't that feel pretty awesome to be thinking, my book's going to be done by December 1st. I'm actually going to have a book in my hand. Well, you might be a little bit skeptical because you're thinking if you wrote something that fast, it would have to be trash, right? Well, not necessarily. Just speaking for myself, I have written 4 books using NaNo Write Mo. 2 of them I've published and 2 of them are almost ready to go. I just need to get on the stick and do some editing. But these are the 2 books that I have published through NaNo Write Mo. These are books 2 and 3 in my Dakota Blues series. And I think they're pretty good. I consistently get good reviews on them, and I'm making money from selling them. So I think that speaks to the validity of NaNo Write Mo. But you don't have to take my word for it, because you know who else did NaNo Write Mo and had a pretty good outcome was Sarah Gruen, who wrote Water for Elephants. She did that during NaNo Write Mo. So there's a little bit of a confirmation that it could be worthwhile. So today I'm going to tell you how I do NaNo Write Mo. Now I have to confess, I am a total plotter. I am very kind of methodical. I do charts and graphs and all kinds of stuff in my normal life. It's how I think. Otherwise I forget things. When I get into a story, a novel length story, I tend to forget who's done what, who needs to do what. you know, I can get really confused, and that's just how my brain works. I have other qualities, good qualities, but that's one of my weaknesses. So I do have a fairly methodical way of getting through NaNoWriMo successfully. It may not be to your taste, but it works for me. If nothing else, if you've never done NaNoWriMo, this will allow you to see the whole process from start to finish. And if you have done Nano and you have your own, you know, strategies and techniques, this might add something to your toolkit. So, and then at the end of the discussion, I would like to ask for the people who have done it, you know, if you can expand on what I've said, if you've got any ideas that we haven't thought of, that things that will help us, or what you've had success with, that would be really helpful. So before you go any further, I would really suggest the very first thing before you start Nano, decide why you would want to do it. I have found that with most things in life, if you know what your reason is, it gives you the strength to persevere when maybe you're not that motivated, you don't really see the point, things get a little hard, life gets confusing. In almost anything you do, I think it helps to have a goal, a shining kind of a reason for why you're doing something. And with Nano, some ideas are, you could prove to yourself that you can actually complete a novel. That might be compelling to you. You might want to increase your productivity and learn how to write faster. That, I'm telling you, I have learned how to write so fast from doing this, and I'll share my tips with you. But for me, I'm pretty good at sitting down and writing, and I've got 5 books done. So I think I've proven myself as far as being a writer, but I can get distracted, I can get sloppy, I can lose my good habits. And this is kind of a process where I get back my discipline from doing Nano. You can do it for the social aspect. It's kind of fun to do it with friends, and maybe this year more than ever. As a regular boost to your writing schedule, I think I just mentioned that. And I say this tongue in cheek to salvage 2020. I kind of feel like this year's been hell, like everybody else, you know, feels the same way. And thanks, Sandy. So if nothing else good happens from 2020, you might end up saying, well, at least I got a book out of it, you know? So that could be, make up a reason that you think would resonate for you and write it down and tape it to your, you know, somewhere by your computer so you could see it when you start to lose, you know, your mojo. Let's see. Okay, the next thing you want to do once you've decided you're really in, you want to do this, is go to nanowrimo.org. By the way, are my slides showing up for you? Okay, thank you. Okay. NaNoWriMo.org is a very helpful website where they will help you keep track of your work. You can enter your word count every day. There's all kinds of inspirational and motivational things on NaNoWriMo.org. In fact, there are so many helpful tools. It's all free, by the way. So many helpful tools on NaNoWriMo.org that your biggest danger is you're going to get like buried trying to do everything, because it's kind of fun to take advantage of what they have to offer. Like, for example, you can join a group, you can make friends, you can use like a social media network if you want to. You can form a group, you can read materials, you can watch videos. It's ridiculous. You can read like testimonials from famous authors on how they use NaNoWriMo. There's one thing that you could do is download a free ebook called Nano Prep 101. I'm sure that would allow you to get into the weeds pretty good, but you have to make sure you come out at some point and start writing. So let's see. The first thing you do when you go to nanowrimo.org is create a profile of yourself and of the book that you're going to be working on. Now, this is all private. You don't have to make it public. There's, you know, they ask you right away. Everything is easy to fill out on NaNoWriMo, but I've been doing it, what does it say, since October 16th of 2014. So I've been doing Nano for 6 years, and I have put in a few things like my picture right there. I don't know what that flowery thing is. They must have done that for me. But it's a helpful website that allows you to sort of have your own portfolio online. I got on there and I was looking at some of my old projects, things I had forgotten that I had done with NaNo. So you can enter as much personal information as you want, but that isn't the good part. The good part is you can enter the information about the work that you intend to do this November. So in other words, you're creating kind of a picture for yourself of what your book is going to look like. Now what you do is you just, upload some picture from your picture file or download it from the web, slap some text over it with a phony baloney title that'll serve as a working title for your current work. And voila, you have a book. See mine, it says Florida Do-Over. That's not really going to be the title and that's not really going to be the cover, but for now it works. And it kind of gives me a sense that, hey, we're really on our way. There's another thing that they do. They ask you to, I think I talk about this a little later, but I don't want to duplicate myself, but they do ask you if you want to describe your book in some of the, one of the little fields that you can fill out. And that helps you too get an idea of what you really want to work on for the month. If you want to quote unquote win at NaNo, if you want to end up with a completed work, for me anyway, I believe that the secret to winning is planning. Prior to the starting gun, I know a lot about my story because I can't imagine having to dream it up on the fly. And then, I don't know if you've got your calculator out, but if you're going to do 50,000 words in 30 days, that is 1,667 words in one day. So that's a lot. It might not be a lot for one day or 2 days in a row, but every single day for 30 days, it can bog you down. For me, I just can't invent my story as I go. I have to know what I'm going to be writing about before I sit down. And then I can do the 1,700 words. Okay. Now, so if you're a pantser, right now you're looking for the leave meeting button, right? Because you don't want to hear all this. But I have something to say to pantsers too. And it's not just plotters that do NaNo successfully. Pantsers do it all the time. I researched, you guys know pantsers are the people that don't like to plan, that they have kind of a religious experience every time they sit down at the computer and write. They don't plot things out as much, they fly by the seat of their pants. Okay, I did some research about pantsers doing NaNo, and these are the kinds of things that pantsers said about why they like to do NaNo. They said there's kind of an adrenaline rush from pantsing your way through it. They like to see where the story takes them and to trust the characters. And what I caught from it was that they talk about it like it's kind of a spiritual experience, some kind of a Zen thing where they let go of control and just push themselves and the story comes out of them. That's cool if you can do it. What we're really talking about is, do you structure your story? Do you plot it out or don't you? And depending on your taste, you may or may not for NaNo. I choose to because it works for me. Although I will tell you, last year, I pantsed my way through NaNo. And I'm just not a pantser, but I did. And the reason was because I was deep in a caregiving situation and I just intended to journal. I thought, well, I can journal 1,600 or 1,700 words a day. But I thought if I'm going to do that, I might as well, think of the story ahead of time. So I kind of sketched it out in my head. And then every day I just closed my bedroom door and I sat down and I journaled about the caregiving situation that I was in. And I ended up with a book that I have since fictionalized, and it just needs to be polished and done. This is not the title or the actual cover of it, but this is what I did for NaNo, the caregiver. I did pants my way through it and I got to the 50,000 words. So it can be done, but otherwise I would plan. How much you plan is up to you. For me, how much and how well I plan has a direct bearing on the quality of the outcome usually. So I would say at least sketch out the basics because that'll boost your enthusiasm and help you get through the doldrums when they hit. And they often do, you know that. Okay, well, how do you plan? This is what I do. The first thing I do is I ask myself the who, what, when, why, how. Who is the story about? Why this person? What's going to happen? Now, remember I said when you're setting up the profile on the NaNo website you should think of a log line or a short description of your book, that really is a good place to start. I used to do the opposite. I would finish a novel and then I would think, okay, now I have to market this sucker. What's my log line? But my book was already done. So I would have to think of the log line after the book was done. And you know what that's like, cramming 10 pounds of sugar in a 1 pound bag. So I learned that it's smarter to do it the other way around. Think up your 25-word description of your book before you even start writing. I really think that's helpful. And then how is this all going to happen? I do a scene outline. I'll tell you about that later. But if you do not like to do that much work ahead of time, what you might do is think of, if this was a movie, if your book was a movie, the thing you're going to write, this book that you've got in your head for NaNo, if it was going to be a movie, what would be 3 or 4 scenes from it that really motivate you? Every book that I've written, I can look back and I think about the book as this particular pivotal scene. Every one of my books has one pivotal scene that I enjoy just thinking about. It's like it makes the book for me. If you are not going to outline everything or structure your book very much in advance, at least have 2 or 3 scenes that you do plan to write that really motivate you, because that'll help you go forward and complete your work. And then the last thing, of course, is the conclusion and hopefully a moral of the story. Now, once you've figured those things out, that should be enough. You could walk off happily into the sunset and wait until November 1st and get started. But of course, this is Lynn, and she does it differently. So here comes more. Brace yourself. The things we just talked about, the who, what, when, why, how, I apply that to a story structure. And thank you, Sandy Schuster, again, for doing that workshop a few months ago where you talked about structure and you introduced me to the Pixar story spine. It says right here that Pixar and Disney both use this technique, which I think is a pretty high recommendation. So if you can think of your story in terms of answering these questions, once upon a time, every day, etc., I think you can apply that who, what, when, why, where to this story spine, and you would be really off to a good start with your story. And so then when you sit down November 1st and you start writing, you'll have a pretty good idea of what you need to say and what you can say every day to get to the end. Just as an aside, I use the story spine. I've written it on an index card. And every morning when I go for my half-hour walk, if it's a writing morning, I've been doing a lot of short stories lately, so this really helps. I go for a walk and I think through my short story using the story spine. Often, when I think of a short story I want to write, I will think of, a compelling character who interests me and a compelling situation that she's stuck in. I like to write about people who are at middle age or older. I like them to be kind of stuck in their life and they're kind of miserable and they don't see a way out of it, but things need to change or else they're going to have a horrible rest of their life and then they're dead. And what did they do with it? It's like when you get older, the rubber meets the road and you have to make those decisions, either change or stay. So that's what I write about. So I will take my little index card and I'll go off for my walk and I'll be determined to create a story around this compelling character and this interesting situation that I've got in my head. This really helps. What else helps is I dictate into my phone. I'll tell you later that will up your word count incredibly. Dictation is so helpful. But as I'm walking around the neighborhood, I've got my phone out and I'm dictating into Google Docs because I have an Android phone. And I will kind of tell myself a story based on this story spine structure. When I get home, I'll have some words. I'll be done. I mean, I might have 800 words from my walk around the neighborhood. So you want to create some sort of a structure. It really helps you write the story. Here's an example. So once upon a time, there was a lonely widow who allowed family members to move in with her, but they took advantage of her kindness. And so Grace feels like a servant. She feels trapped and desperate. This is the story spine, just step by step. You can see that. I haven't thought everything out, but these are the stages that I am going to have to follow in order to create my story. And I will do this before I sit down to do NaNo Write Mo, and it will really help me. By the way, I get a lot of my story ideas from reading Dear Abby, and Carolyn Hacks asked me about it. I'm addicted to advice columns, and I often read of a human situation that's just untenable, and I want to write my way out of it for them. So, all right. So that's what I do. We've set up a goal. We have figured out our basic planning that answered the 5 questions, and we figured on a structure that we're going to use. Well, now, this is kind of cool. It looks like a lot of work, but you do this ahead of time at your leisure. Like now is just the end of September. You have all of October to do some of this stuff. I do a scene outline, which is, if you want to look at it that way, it's 30 days of writing prompts. In this case, I wrote a story. The working title, cover your ears, was Golden Years, My Ass. That's what I thought this person was going through. That's what she would say about her circumstances. This is Diane. On day number 1, when I sit down on November 1st, if I'm writing this story, and I already wrote it, Diane would be, we would be describing the scene where the bank robbers run into Diane and break her leg. Poor busybody Diane, she was just leaving a note on their windshield advising them to park more carefully next time when they came running out of the bank and smashed into her and broke her leg. Well, so she returns to work in scene 2, hobbling in a cast with a crutch, and her young boss says, well, I thought you were going to retire. Isn't this a perfect time for you to retire? So we have a scene of ageism and annoyance. The 3rd day, Diane is sitting down with a young employee who's very troubled. And she says, she listens to Allison's problem, and she says, successful people find a way to manage their lives. And she's obviously very smug about how her life is in control, which of course, you know, is a setup, because the whole book is going to be about Diane's life going out of control and what she does about it. These are day 1, 2, and 3 of my 30 days of writing prompts that I did that year in NaNo Write Mo. All I do is just one little paragraph or maybe a sentence, and then I know what I'm going to write the next day. I don't stick to it necessarily, you know, stringently. I might figure out something else I want to do. I might go a little bit off the rails, but to some extent, I need to know where the beginning and end are. So I do a 30 days of writing prompt, AKA a scene outline. Also, how this helps me is, let's say it's day number 3 and I've written as much as I can write about that particular scene, and I still haven't completed my 1,700 words. I can jump around. I can go to scene number 25 and bulk it up a little bit. I can go to scene 10 and bulk that one up a little bit, flesh it out a little bit. All I'm trying to do that day is see the word count on my manuscript go up by 2,000 words, well, 1,700, but you want to bank a few if you can. And once I get to that point, I can stop. It doesn't matter that I didn't make a 2,000 word chapter. I just need to add, you know, that many numbers of words to my daily output. I say 2,000 because what I tend to do is I try to write 2,000 words a day when I'm doing NaNo. If you're dictating, it goes a lot faster and it's not that out of reach. It sounds incredible right now, but it really is not that difficult, because if you are dictating, what you can do, and let me explain this a little bit more in detail. I said that I open up a new Google Doc and I dictate into that. I don't write a story, or I don't tell a story in loving, you know, order and detail as I'm walking down the street dictating. Instead, what I do is I might describe a setting. I might describe a character. I might think up a conflict between 2 characters. I might think up an argument that 2 characters are having, or somebody throwing down the gauntlet at the other person. And so I'm talking and I say, well, she said this and he said that. it's just, you know, pieces of my story. Then when I get home and I'm sitting at my laptop, I open up Google Docs and I copy and paste that excerpt into my manuscript on Microsoft Word. And suddenly the number of words on my Microsoft Word counter, my word count, just go up by like 800. It's makes you feel like you're really on track. Dictation is so helpful, and I very much recommend it. Okay, so far we've talked about the goal, the planning basics, the structure, and the scene outline. You'd think I'd be done, right? Well, I'm not. Again, this is just to get you thinking about what you might do. But for me, this is how I absolutely, I will bet you every single NaNoWriMo, I will get a usable novel out of it. And that's worth it to me to do this much planning. Here we go, you guys. I make a logbook for that November. I fill up a binder with 30 pages. Well, I wouldn't fill it up, but I put 30 pages into a binder. And as you can see over here, I don't know if can you see my cursor? You see my cursor flying around? Okay, good. Okay, I make up a sheet of labels, and each label says, this little top line says total, or today, it says today. So that's obviously, that's the number of words that I wrote today. After I get done, I will, I should say, I put these labels over here on the upper right-hand corner of my page for my pages. I make 30 of them for every day of the month in November. So this label here said, it allows me to record how many words I wrote today. The next line is how many words I've written total since I started. And then this last line is where the rubber meets the road. It's what my total should be at this point. It gives me a goal to work towards every single day. So I'll tell you why I use this notebook. Before November 1st, and this really mattered more when we were not locked down because of a global pandemic. I mean, who would have thought? This is such a ridiculous situation. Normally, you know, what are you doing in November? You're going places, you're cooking, you're buying presents, you're planning, you're doing holiday stuff, right? In fact, I used to think, what kind of a creep would put NaNoWriMo in the middle of a holiday month like that? But maybe that was to show you that you really could do it if things weren't so easy. But now, anyway, so what I would do is with my logbook is I would sit down in the middle of October and I'd make up my logbook and I would turn to page 1, which I would write November 1st. And I would look at my calendar and think, what do I have going on November 1st? Is it a good day to write? If it was, great, flip to November 2nd. If it wasn't a good day, let's say relatives are coming from out of town or I had to get on a plane and fly somewhere, I would write down how that would affect my writing for the day. And so I would be prepared. Maybe you can only write 500, probably shoot for 500 words. Do what you can. I'll show you in a minute what I actually did. But every day of November, I would look and see if there were any obstacles to my writing so that when I got to that day, I knew how to work around it. Let me show you what I mean. I hope you can all read this. But basically, this is from, I think this was the year that I wrote Key Largo Blues. That year, I was everywhere. It was just a big traveling November. I went to Central California for a family holiday. I went to, and that included train travel in addition to driving. I flew to Texas to see my girlfriend and her family. Went to Florida. It was fun. I did a lot of traveling, but I had to write 50,000 words while I was doing all that stuff. So I sat down and looked at how was my writing schedule going to be affected by all of these challenges. And here's an example of what I wrote. This says, okay, Texas to Atlanta. You see that up in the corner? Day 10, I was flying. I wanted to remind myself, charge the computer because you are going to be working without some, you know, maybe running it down into the ground. This morning will probably be hectic. You might get a couple of 100 words in before breakfast, and the bulk of your writing will be at the airport and on the plane. So you can see, this is how I prepared for it. Look how it went. Not so good, huh? I actually only got 200 words done. And look up in the upper right-hand corner up here. It says that I'm 750 words behind. It wasn't a very good day, but at least I knew it was going to be hard. At least I got those 200 words done. What if I hadn't planned for it and I found myself just overwhelmed by the day and didn't do anything? Then I'd be behind by more than that. Also, this speaks to the need to bank words and write ahead if you possibly can. And that is why dictation is really so helpful. This is kind of hard for me to just blather on like this without feedback from you guys. So I hope that when we get to the point where we can discuss what I'm telling you, that you'll have some questions for me and I can elaborate or clarify as necessary. But this is life in Zoom land, so we'll do the best we can. Every day after you finish writing, what I do is, of course, you want to go to nanowrimo.org and enter the number of words that you just completed for the day, because they have graphs and charts and everything that change based on your input. They tell you how far you've gotten and how many what your daily word average is and how many more you have to go and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of encouraging. What I also do, and many writers do this, at the end of their writing session for the day, they leave themselves a note or some kind of a prompt for the next day saying, you forgot to explain why Janie jumped out of the truck at high speed. She just did it. Why? You need to explain that in your next writing session. So I leave myself a note as I finish up on one day so that I can just get started the next day without wondering where I am. And that's also where the 30 days of scene prompts, the writing prompts comes in. So you're doing this every single day, and pretty soon you get to 50,000, and look what happens. You get a certificate. NaNoWriMo actually gives you a certificate. It's kind of fun. See, this was for 2018 when I wrote No Way in Hell, a Sedona romance. I know. I don't think I can use that title. I love that title, but there's a side of me that really wants to publish it that way and see what happens. But I don't know. I might turn off enough people that it wouldn't be worth it. But anyway, so you get a certificate when you complete it. So let me summarize. This is my 5-point plan for Nano success. First of all, decide on a goal. Why are you doing it? For me, I need to salvage 2020. I need to have a book in my hands when this hell ends. Well, then the new hell is 2021, but pull some positivity out of it. Figure out who you're writing about and why, etc. Number 3, get an idea of the structure. Number 4, create a scene or chapter outline, 30 days of writing prompts. And number 5, create a logbook to help yourself remain on track and full of confidence. Okay, that's my routine. I would encourage you, once again, to go to nanowrimo.org and see what they have there to help you. It will augment what I talked about. It might explain something that I left unexplained. You can join communities and find inspirational and motivational articles. And remember to record your word count every day on your profile. Also, remember to try dictation. I swear it works so well. And at the end of November, you will have a full manuscript that you can turn into a book. By the way, it doesn't have to be a novel, even though this is called National Novel Writing Month. You can write 50,000 words of poetry, I suppose, if that's what you want to do. You can write 50,000 words worth of nonfiction or a memoir or short stories. Either way, as long as you get 50,000 words in, you win, and you will have gotten closer to whatever goal it is that you have set for yourself. So let's look at final thoughts. Just think for a minute what it would be like to have a book in your hands by December 1st of this year. Wouldn't that feel good? Number 2, once you realize you can do this, you'll be able to write a book in a month anytime you want. You don't have to wait for November. You can set up your own mini nanos with yourself or anybody else any time of the year. 1 month to prepare, 1 month to write, 1 month to edit. Every 3 months you could write a book if you do it right. I learned that I can write anywhere, anytime if I have to. Your excuses fall by the wayside. I used to think that I had to have a full night's sleep and get my candle lit and my little bell that I would ring. And it doesn't have to be that way. I found out that I can actually write towards the 50,000 words while I'm sitting in the passenger seat of a car, driving up the 99 towards a holiday fun fest, longhand in a spiral notebook. You can do it any way you want to, but it teaches you things about yourself. And then number 3, the more you write, the easier it gets. Okay, that's a little tongue-in-cheek because we know that no matter how many books you write, it's always a challenge, right? But so many of you have said that you have recognized this truth too, that the more you stay close to your story, the more often you work on it, the more routinely you work on your story, the more natural it feels. You come up with ideas when you don't expect it. You might wake up with an idea for your story. You might go for a walk and all of a sudden you're thinking of some neat twist that would actually propel your story into the next dimension. That doesn't happen if you get away from if you write one day and then you don't go back to it for a week, and then you write another day and you don't go back for it. If you're writing every single day, even if you're not doing NaNo, your work becomes more organic. Your subconscious helps you. And so therefore you can be more productive than you would ever, and more creative than you would ever imagine, unless you had tried this. So I would really recommend that you give NaNo a try at least this once. You know, you can get in touch with me and I'll give you encouragement and help you if you need it, but you might be amazed to see what the results are. And with Jim's permission, at our first meeting in January, I'd sure like to ask who did it and how it turned out. So this concludes my talk, and I hope we'll open it up now for a discussion of, thank you, Sandy. Jim, can you open up the, unmute everybody? Okay.
Yeah, let me, let's see. There we go. All right. I'm going to go to, let me get the gallery view here. And I think I can see almost everybody's hand. And if anybody wants to, see, somebody had Sandy had a question first, I think. Oh, I have to unmute all. Okay.
That would help.
All right. Sandy, you just have to unmute yourself. You're okay. Or I'll unmute you. I'll unmute you on this sign. Unmute. There you go. You're unmuted, Sandy.
Yay. Thank you, Lynn. Because of you, I did NaNo Write Mo, and I set my notebook up, and I cannot tell you how helpful that was.
Oh, thank you.
I am not a big plotter, but everything I have read says the more, as you have suggested, the more you plan ahead, the less rewriting there is to do, that you are more productive in the writing that you do. You don't take as many, wild side trips. Yes, yes. So, and what I found different this time was the scene. I really liked the setting up the scenes, and so I'm going to give it a go. But
okay, I'm writing your name down on my list of who to check with in January.
Okay.
Sandy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm inspired again to do it, because you just inspire confidence that you can do that.
Yeah,
so
if I can do it, anybody can do it. And then, this is my binder for this year, my workbook for this year. And like I said, if I could do the caregiver story, that was very, very challenging circumstances. And then, like I said, typically in a November, what are we doing? We're all busy. This year, not so much. So NaNo should be a lot easier, and this will be the only NaNo in the history of the world, well, that that we have a global pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, anybody who has done NaNo needs to do NaNo this year just to compare it, because this is a bizarre situation, and now we'll have stories about, but when I did it in 2020, this is what happened. So I think
That's a whole new anthology.
well, and then you don't have, like I said, you don't have to just do it in November. You can do it in April. You know,
Okay.
do it in July.
I have two. Dan's first, and then Kathy has a question.
Okay.
So Dan.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, Lynn, I definitely want to compliment you on that presentation.
Well,
It
thank
was
you.
so clear, and the slides were just wonderful. I have it on a big TV. I'm in the living room.
Oh my God. So it's like 85 point, right?
Oh man, the font was so clear and everything was laid out well. And I was glued to the screen. So my compliments on all of that. And even though I don't plan to do NaNo Write Mo, a couple of your hints. Well, I'm wrestling with my first novel, and I've got more editing to do, and then I'll be in a publishing mode hopefully by that time. So I got my plans in effect here. But I like the way you organized your things, and I'm going to adopt some of your techniques.
Well, thanks very much, Daniel. And good luck on your book.
Thank you.
Kathy.
Yeah, about I didn't start writing until about 2 years ago. I retired from corporate management after 40 some years and decided I was going to write my dad's story. So I'm really new to writing and a lot to learn. I took a trip about 2 years ago, circling America, and I want to write a book about that called Circling America in 90 Days. And I kept a journal, and I've always dictated because in business I dictate. So I dictate. I do dictate everything. And I want to dictate that daily journal into a book. You know, it's stories of meeting family and friends, sometimes for the first time. That was part of the reason we took the 90-day trip, but also about seeing America and appreciating what we have. So my question, after all that is said, my question is, would that qualify as a novel? I mean, I don't think of it as a novel, but would that qualify for something like NaNo?
This is yes, it would. This is one of the really cool things about NaNo is that it is yours to invent. I mean, I think the only way you can cheat would be if, or, you know, not follow the rules would be if you wrote something ahead of time and then dumped it into November and said, woohoo, I did it now. But you're only cheating yourself. So but that's not what you're asking about. It doesn't have to be a novel. It can be anything you want, as long as it's 50,000 words written from November 1st through November 30th. And you want to be sure and create a profile for yourself at nanowritemo.org, because every day or every periodically you want to enter the number of words that you've completed. And then when you get to the 50,000 words, they will ask you to copy and paste your document, your manuscript, into a little box on the website. And I guess they have some sort of an automatic word counter, and then that's what generates that neat little certificate that you saw. So it doesn't matter what you write. I suppose you could write 50,000 words, sentences worth of I hate writing, I hate writing, I hate writing, and still win. But do whatever works, whatever your goal is, Kathy, pursue that goal and just be sure and put the 50,000 words on the website at the end.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Karen, unmute yourself, Karen.
Where are you?
Okay, just I did this in 2018 and that was great. I'm going to take a lot of your ideas. I did complete it and got 53,000 words in 24 days.
Wow.
But it's taken me 2 years to finally get it edited. And I found that a little piece that worked for me was I knew all my characters because I was writing a sequel. So if you've written a book before and you have characters that you could continue with.
Good idea.
That was very, very helpful because I already knew them. The other thing was, if we wanted to, I also subscribe to Zoom. So if any of you guys want to get together and we could have a little Zoom group where we could meet, like,
I'm in.
yeah, it would be fun to do that with whoever wants to do it together. Another thing I thought of was there was some days where my husband was gone and I just wrote like 3,000 words so I could get way ahead. That was one of my strategies. And also I kept a big chart on the door, or on the wall rather, of where I left all my characters, so that the next day I could remember who they were and where they were. You know, I am 77. And then at the end, of course, I had to buy the t-shirt.
Yay, got the t-shirt.
I don't get much chance to show this off.
And we're a very appreciative audience.
So yeah, so if anybody wants to get together for a Zoom that we can do just for that during that period of time, just email me and we'll do it.
Okay. Sandy, did you have something?
I just wanted to say to Kathy that what she is describing is a travel memoir. And what I did, NaNo Write Mo before, it was on my memoir, which made it kind of easy for a pantser because I knew the events of my life. But what you're doing, so it works for memoir, like Lynn said, for anything. You're describing a travel memoir.
Oh, thank you.
Somebody else have a, yeah, Cheryl. Oh, and Kathleen will be next, okay? Yeah.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah.
Lynn, that was really well organized. Awesome.
Thank you.
I want to tell you to go for it and use the title "No Way in Hell," what that was called. That
You liked it, huh?
title, you know, it almost doesn't matter. I picked up somewhere free. It was just in free somewhere, a book called something like My Sex Life. Okay. And I forgot I had picked that up. And suddenly I saw it sitting on my coffee table years later. I mean, I don't even know when I got this. And I went, what on earth? I buy a book called, I embarrassed myself. Like, that. And I picked it up horrified, and every page in it was blank. So the title got me. So I'm telling you, go for the title. Seriously, that's my advice.
Well, you know, so I have Golden Years My Ass and No Way in Hell, and so maybe I'll become the cussing romantic. You know.
But it works. The title, those are great titles.
Well,
so.
I remember C.J. Hernley. She wrote a book, you know, she used to write books about trekking through nature, you know, because she was just a real nature woman, just such an impressive person. And you would write little books about all of her adventures. Each adventure warranted a book. And the one title that I remember was Cactus in My Ass.
Right.
So maybe.
Kathleen, you had a question or a point.
Well, I was just going to say I really appreciated, because this is the first time I'll be doing NaNoWrite, and like Kathy and Cara, I'm new to writing. I've only been doing it for, it'll be a year in December. So I've done a book in 60 days, but that I didn't know what I was doing. So now that I have a little bit of education underneath my belt, and I've gone from being a pantser to a semi-plotter, this gives me a lot to help me. And I love your Disney grid line.
Yeah.
That is really, really good. Because I use a grid line with my editor and for the way you did the scenes outline, that's going to be a great help for me too. Because I don't jump around. I like to go straight in a row, but it still gives me something that I can build. And then if I see something that, like a character that I bring in that really needed to be brought in say the first or the second chapter, because he's going to end up playing more of an important role than I thought, then I can do that.
But you can add it.
I use Scrivener, which lets you put in how many words to do a day, and it tracks it for you, and it pops up and tells you how much you've got left.
Yeah, Scrivener's awesome.
So
I'd like to make just a couple of comments. And Lynn, yeah, thanks. It was a great presentation and very clear, although I will not be doing it. But that's for different reasons. I mean, you know, one of the things I want to say about the original NaNo Write Mo author has to be Frederick Faust. I mentioned this to our group, our board meeting the other day. Frederick Faust, who wrote under the name of Max Brand, he died at 44 in World War II, and by the time he died, he'd had 250 books published.
Man.
450 waiting to be published.
Oh my God.
He wrote a book, the equivalent of one every 3 weeks of his life. Somebody asked me, said, well, did he write anything that was good? Well, the answer is, hey, you write that many books, sooner or later you're gonna get something right. And he wrote he really was a Western novelist, and he wrote two classics in the field. One called The Untamed, and one that they made into a movie about 3 or 4 times called Destry Rides Again. And you know, one of the problems when you think about NaNoWriMo, and you said it, Lynn, about people thinking, well, will it be any good at the end of 50,000 words? And I go to another author named Theodore Sturgeon, a science fiction writer, was being interviewed on the radio, and somebody asked him, well, and the interviewer asked him, so is it true, Mr. Sturgeon, that 90% of science fiction is crap? And he said, absolutely. He said, but then 90% of anything is crap. And I think that's true. And the first right is the first right. You're not going. That's not what you're going to stick with anyway. And what I think is valuable. I did this once before it became NaNoWriMo. I wrote a novel in a month once, and it was terrible. But the point is that what it taught me was the value of a set kind of routine. That if I sit down and wrote so much every day and set a goal every day, that reaching that goal then became important. And if I did it, then I accumulated pages, and eventually I had a first draft of a novel. So I think what's important about this is the idea that if you don't have the structure, it gives you structure, and you added additional structure to this. My question, I do have a question at the end of all this, however, and the question is, in the material that you point out that was Pixar and Dixie and Dixie, not Disney, not Dixie, Pixar and Disney used. It was, what was it called?
The Pixar Story Spine.
Yeah, the Pixar Story Spine. And it had the word moral in it.
Yes, it did.
Or I guess I'm questioning moral. Do you think every story has a moral?
No. And a lot of times what I've heard is that sometimes people find their own morals out of a story. They will draw their own meaning from a story. I've also heard it isn't our job as writers to have a moral of a story. That comes kind of close to preaching or writing a story for the sake of preaching. But I think that in the Pixie and Disnar, Pixie and Disnar, the story spine, I think that they do that. Like when you think about Finding Nemo and the other, you know, animated stories, there's definitely a moral. So that would fit with their construct. No, I think you have to have a conclusion. It's nice to have a theme, but I think when you're writing for NaNoWriMo and you're planning the way that I plan, I would naturally have a theme, and I hate to use the word moral because it sounds like you're preaching some sort of, the moral of the story is, it sounds like pontificating. But I think there has to be a point to your story. That's what I would call it. I would say, what is the point of this story? Why are people reading it? Because I think that for fiction, I'll speak to the genre that I care about, women's fiction with romantic elements or romances, period. There is usually some kind of a point. People read it to become better people. They want to see someone triumph over adversity. And so there has to be that thread running through it. But each writer is different, and I don't think it's necessary to have a moral to the story.
Yeah, I do think theme is important. I think every story ultimately has one. It can be shallow or it can be deep, but themes have. Chuck, you have a question or something?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that because when I saw that, I was reminded of an old saw. When you have a story, it's who, what, when, why, where, how, and so what. So rather than a moral, so what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an, I wouldn't say it's a softer term, but so what?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Why are you writing the story? What's the point? I swear that the more I write, the more I think of that in the beginning stages. What's the point, Lynn? Why are you writing this story? Who cares?
Yeah. And I also wanted to comment that a lot of these elements ring true with some of the basic training that I've had. And it's you start out with a vision, and then from your vision you determine what your mission is, and then you begin to put in the elements of what strategy you're going to use, and then you end up doing the work. So a lot of those rang true as you talked.
I can see that. Yeah.
One of my feelings about writing, I used to have arguments when I was teaching, both at the high school and at the community college. I'd have arguments with my compatriots in the English department about the meaning of literature. Well, why do we read novels or short stories?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that brings us in? And it always comes down to me well, it's entertainment. Now, entertainment exists on different levels. I mean, I want to be intellectually entertained as well as viscerally entertained in some way. That if it's an action adventure story, I want some kind of intellectual content. Now, somebody else may not need that. But really, we read those to be entertained. Now, if there's a theme that's important to us or some kind of message you have to get, that's additional to it.
Yeah.
But the first, if it doesn't entertain, who's going to read the book?
Yeah,
who's
absolutely.
going to read the short story?
Yeah.
Howard, you had a point.
Yeah, I had 2 points. Number one, I like the discipline of that approach, and that's something that a lot of people, including myself, sometimes lack from time to time. And I'm thinking back, like 8 or 10 years ago, I was overweight, and I signed up for this computer-based program where you had to measure your calories and put it into the program every day at the end of the day. And I lost 58 pounds. So I do believe in a disciplined approach by getting an outside structure that you don't necessarily have within yourself. I think that's the good part. The other part that strikes me is I've noticed that one of the elements of a story is that the character changes through the course of the story, and then you have a changed character, which leads you to show what has happened and why. And if you compress that into a short pre-planned time frame, you don't necessarily have the time to think about what has changed in this character, and now how has that impacted what you call the moral of the story. And that adds a lot of interest to the book, is to see before you over the course of the writing how the character has changed and what has come from it. So that's my only concern about the NaNo Write Mo, that you may be missing out on that element.
Well, I think that always keep in mind that nobody can write a perfect book in 1 month. There are some people who are really cranking them out, but I can't do that. I can write, if I wrote a book in a month, it is always a spectacular accomplishment, but it is nowhere near ready to be published. And as I go back through, spend the next month, polishing it and looking for those areas of opportunity, Howard, then I will add to it and expand on it. For another thing, most of my books are not only 50,000 words. Most of my stories are closer to 80. So as I go through and I see that I have not fleshed out sufficiently some aspect of story with one of my characters, for example, that's a perfect opportunity to add another 2,500 words here or there to make the story more fulsome, more enjoyable, more richer. But that's a part of the what I call the polishing process. So, and Dietz had a question. Can you unmute yourself?
Who did?
Can you hear me?
Dietz.
Oh,
Yes,
Dietz.
we can, huh?
Thanks, Lynn, because I had no idea what NaNo ever was, and I
Yeah.
some motivation, but I'm also an Aries, so I'm not sure what to expect for my planning. But my question is, how do you handle research? Like, I have a story I've been working on for about 10 years that involves one of the characters knowing a lot about magic, and I know nothing about magic, so to me that's going to be a lot of research. And I could do that ahead of time, but what if in your course of planning and writing, it comes up that you need to do some research on something? That's going to take some time away from your writing, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. And that, thank you for making me remember. Somebody else said this too. You can't go back and edit. Sandy, I think it was. You can't rewrite while and you don't want to go down blind alleys while you are in this marathon. You know, think of it as a marathon you're running. You want to stay on the path, running. You don't want to get distracted or take time out for anything. So what I would say in your case is that I would plan to write the 50,000 word story, and in places where you are going to need to know something about magic, I would make a note, you know, just an asterisk or some kind of a parenthetical comment to myself. Why would they need this potion here? Or wouldn't this be a place for sun and moon, whatever? And then keep going. And I'll tell you what, I bet it'll improve the quality of your research too, because as we all do research, we tend to do too much of it. We don't know what we need. We go overboard. And then we've got, 20 pounds of research that we have to cram into a 5-pound sack. If you do it this way, you forget about researching it and you go forward with the story, just use your imagination a little bit. Tell yourself that there is a kind of dust that will accomplish the kind of mood enhancement that you want. Write the story as if it's already been invented, and then go back and do the research to fill that in with something more solid. But that'll be later, after the 50,000 words are done. I think it'll save you some time. It took me 8 years to write my first book. So
Maybe more like 12, but
yeah.
no, that's
Yeah.
a good point, that you would over research when really just wait to find out what you need when it's done.
Yes,
So
and how often
I can fake it.
Yeah, how often? Yes, just fake it until you need, then go looking for what you need. It'll be much more efficient. But how often do we go down into researching and we think, oh, this is so much fun. I love this. Did you know about this? This is really something. And you want to write it into your story, and nobody cares. It doesn't matter to the story, but you liked it and you were thrilled about it. So or you tell yourself, well, I worked really hard today. But what did you do? You went down that rabbit hole of research. But did you produce any words? Not necessarily. And that is where NaNo Write Mo gives you a structure, but you can't allow yourself the time to take time out and go and do research, unless you have so much energy that you can do it after you've got your 1,667 words done for the day. Karen.
You're muted, Karen. Unmute yourself.
Okay. I was just thinking, before I did this the first time, I can't remember which person it was, but somebody told me that they did it, and I said, well, did you finish it? And she said, well, I wrote 16,000 words. And I said, oh, and she said, but that doesn't make any difference. I wrote 16,000 words that I wouldn't have written otherwise.
Yes.
And I think that's an encouragement, because we all, Lynn and I are like goal-driven Goofballs.
Maniacs.
I mean, we set a goal. We think the whole world's going to come to an end if we don't get to the end of that goal. And you don't really have to feel that way. If you only produce 20,000 words, holy cow, that's fabulous.
Amen.
You produced 20,000 words just because you had this little oomph to go and do it. So don't be discouraged if you don't make it to the end. Just get started and get the feel of it. It's really fun.
That's an awesome point. Thank you. Dennis.
What would you say were your top 3 challenges out of all of the NaNoWriMos you've written?
You know, I don't really remember anything being a challenge except for one day I was sitting in a hotel room and Bill got to go do something fun and I had to stay in the hotel room and write. And I remember sitting like with my fanny on the pillow of the bed, you know, and my legs propped up and the laptop on my knees, and I'm typing away in this dang hotel room while he's going out jet skiing or something, you know. Also writing in that spiral notebook going up towards Visalia on the 99, that was pretty bleak. But I would say that for me, the big challenge is to write when it's not my good time. I write well in the morning. It's my time. I'm a morning person. I get up really early. I'm refreshed. I'm telling you, I am so creative. There are things that just fly out of my head with a little bit of coffee and some good sleep. I'm unstoppable. I can cook up stuff. I don't even know where it's coming from. If I get to about 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm done. And if I haven't done my word count then I have to sit down at like 7 o'clock at night and try and crank out something. And it is, you could tell from the quality of it, it's horrible. And it's a job, it's a chore. But it would be depressing not to do it for me, especially because, like I said, in 2020, this has been a non-productive year pretty much. And I would like to thwart the gods and show that, by gosh, I can still come up with something. So Dennis, I hope that answered your question. I think the timing element and the impediments of it being interfered with are the 2 things that I can think of.
Yeah, anybody else?
Dixie.
Yes, Dixie.
First, I want to say thank you, Lynn, for a very inspiring today.
My pleasure.
That you shared, because I've never done the NaNoWriMo, and I decided that while you were talking that I have been working on a thing off and on, a little book off and on for a while, but I'm stuck. I've been stuck for quite a while. And I've decided that maybe I don't necessarily do NaNoWriMo, but I can take the concept of it and use it and do something with it every day.
Yes.
And, instead of worrying about all of the other structure about it, just work on that. So thank you for inspiring me to do that.
Well, my pleasure, Dixie. And I'll tell you, getting this presentation together got me really cranked up. I'm very excited about doing this. And so it was helpful to me too. I will say, one of the last thoughts I want to leave you guys with is, and this thought has been expressed already, but I want to emphasize it, is that I was shocked at what I learned about what I could do. You may come away from NaNoWriMo not necessarily with a novel, but you may come away with more self-knowledge, more pride in yourself as a writer, you may feel empowered as a writer, as a business person, as an artist. This is an experience that it's very personal. You can do it all by yourself and nobody knows what you're doing but you, and you decide how important it is. As Karen said, how many months do you actually write 20,000 words? How many months do you actually write 10,000 words? If you only write 10,000 words in November and they're good words, good enough that you can, keep them, or maybe they're not even good words, but they prove to you that you could write 10,000 words in a month. Doesn't that far exceed your productivity from any other time? It's, except for Jim, I would say Jim has the discipline. Jim, you are the most productive writer I know. You just get in there and you grind and grind and grind and grind constantly. And you're just every day in and day out, you're producing. So you don't need NaNo. But for the rest of us, it can give us more confidence that we can produce. And if you ever just turn around and say, wow, I just did 15,000 words in 1 month, let alone 50, you are a winner in your own eyes. And in anybody else's, I think, who knows just how hard it is to actually write down those words and make a story. So good for all of you for trying it.
Michelle has a point. Michelle?
Oh, it was actually to something that was said a couple of questions ago. At the high school level, a lot of the creative writing programs do institute a NaNoWriMo as well, but they always have a lesser goal. They don't ever expect their high school students to do 50,000. And I don't remember exactly what it was. I know Liam did it his senior year because he was in creative writing. And so that's another thing to look at. You don't have to necessarily set that 50,000 word goal.
Right.
Maybe set your own goal, and that way, if you achieve it, you'll have that sense.
Yeah,
I've never done that NaNoWriMo. I do write every day, depending on how much time. I always write every day. I mean,
good for you.
Even if it's a paragraph, I do something every day. But I'm kind of playing with the idea of doing NaNo, and I'll let you know by the end of October.
Gotcha.
I must say that I do not write every day necessarily. Like the last, I'd say 2 weeks, I've written very little. But what I have done is use that time to edit what I'm working on right now and trying to get it ready for to get out to an agent. But it's been so sometimes it's not writing, it's that rewriting that you're doing, that polishing, that's as important, more important ultimately than the writing. I think the writing is to get it down on paper, but to make it viable, it has to be a polished effort. And I mean, I like any writer, you struggle in the polishing. You struggle over sentences, you struggle over words, you struggle over everything. And of course you have to look at the bigger picture. Are your characters doing what they're supposed to do? Is your environment consistent with what you're writing? All these things are part of that polishing, and which is extremely important. Although I come back to the point that I do believe that NaNo Write Mo gives you discipline you may not have. And I think that the value really lies in that. If you produce 20,000 or 30 or 50,000 words, whether they're good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's the idea of ultimately getting it down. But once you got it down, you can do something with it.
Yes, I don't think you should ever try to edit under the gun. Editing is sort of more, it's a higher level process, as you said, Jim. So don't try to edit during NaNoWriMo, anybody.
Yeah, I agree.
Dennis.
I wanted to ask the opposite question that I'd asked before about the challenges. Do you have any best days or mountaintop experiences from your writing? Maybe 3 of those?
I will tell you that, how I said that thinking cinematically is important to see a movie of your work in your head, and that it's important to have, if you are not going to do a scene outline, to at least have 2 or 3 just monumental scenes from your story in your imagination, something that you can write towards. Well, when I look back on my stories, I have, as I said, a scene that just, I think about it now, and it moves me so much. And sometimes those scenes have been written with almost like divine inspiration. Like there was a scene that I wrote where a woman escapes an attempt on her life, only by making the horrible decision to let somebody else die. Well, the other person deserved to die. But this was a big jump for her. She was raised to be self-sacrificing, and this was to let somebody else die to save herself was just the ultimate, my God, choice. And the way that I described her thought process as she was processing that, it still chills me. And I don't know where it came from. And sometimes I think that that's a connection to some kind of divinity. When you get that kind of a channel to that kind of imagination, I think it isn't me. I don't know where it comes from. And so that's a mountaintop kind of experience. And then sometimes I'll imagine something in a scene that I imagine it so intensely that I never forget it. And it stays with me forever. An example is, I used to, when I was a kid, I rode horses a lot. I was like one of those little horse crazy girls, you know, that always wanted a horse. But I read every book on horses in the library, my local library. I finally had to then have to read about dogs because I cleaned out the horse books. I love horses. I love looking at them. And so I wrote a scene in my last book where this woman adopts a crazy rescue thoroughbred who is otherwise going to the glue factory. So she adopts this horse, and the horse's name is Looney Tunes because it's unrideable. Well, she gets it to the point where she's going to be able to ride it. She's riding it around the corral, and she's thinking, okay, that was good, but I'm not going to push my luck. And so she tries to get Looney to stop, and Looney takes the bit in her teeth and goes over the fence, a 6-foot pipe corral fence, and heads out across North Dakota pasture land, jumps 2 more fences before she finally stops. Well, I described the feeling of having what, a 1,400-pound animal, because this was a big horse, jumping over a pipe corral fence with my character on her back like a flea, no control at all. And just feeling the muscles bunching underneath her hands and her shoulders, I mean, her body, feeling that horse go over the fence. To me, when you get into a story and you write a scene that just almost haunts you, I think that's the difference between writing and being a writer. So I know I went on for kind of a long time, but I feel very strongly about this, as you can tell. Oops. Anything more you want to know, Dennis?
Anybody else?
That was great. I really like that. You got any more stories like that?
Yeah, don't tempt me. Usually involving women and guns.
Anybody else?
You have to buy the book.
Thank you. That was Daniel, right?
Yes, that was Daniel. All right.
I have a question. If nobody else has any questions, I've been seeing some of the chat messages come through, and some people have said that they want to join the, thank you, Wendy, I appreciate that. Some people want to join the NaNo group that we're going to do, that Karen suggested we start up. So far, these are the names that I have. There's Karen and myself, Jerry Green, excuse me, Cindy Finkelstein, and Sandy Schuster. Are you in?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to be included on the email list? Kathleen does. Hang on.
And Dennis is raising his hand.
Dennis does. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Am I forgetting anybody? Let's see. So Michelle, you want to try it? Yay. Okay.
Just don't make it Wednesday morning.
No. We don't know what we're going to do we, Karen? But we'll figure it out, and we'll send everybody an email, and then we'll do something on Zoom. I'm not sure what, but we'll figure out something, and it'll be motivating and social. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, unless anybody has any last words, no. Oh, well, Michelle does. Michelle?
I do, because Jerry didn't say anything about this, and so I think I should, Jerry. She wrote a Zoom play And I looked at it last night. I laughed. It was hysterical. It's about 27 minutes. It's on YouTube. You can go to Jerry's Facebook page, or you can go to, is it on Harvard Street Theater Company's page? Is that where it's at, Jerry? You're muted.
Still muted.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's on their page.
What is it? Harvard Street?
Harvard
Street. Go ahead.
You take it. Harvard Street Theater. I guess
it's Harvard Street Theater Company, and it's actually a group. It was they were doing shows at Diamond Valley Art Center until they closed down. But since COVID, they've gone kind of virtual, right?
Yeah. You can go to YouTube and put Suicide Hotline. You know, you're billing it as a big comedy, but it is called Suicide Hotline, and it's in honor of Suicide Prevention Month, which is this month. And
there's some very, very serious themes, very serious themes, but there's also some really funny moments. And so it's Jerry's a great writer. She's been writing plays and screenplays for years and working on that kind of stuff. And if you want to see her work, go there and take a look at it. It was really, really good. So.
Thank you. And you can add Zoom play to it, Suicide Hotline, Zoom play, and it comes up faster, I think. So there's a lot of suicide stuff on YouTube.
Okay.
Has a great cast too. Really good cast. Yeah. Really good cast on there. Yeah.
Well, thanks. That's great. Well, I'll take a look. Anybody else have anything? Well, if not, then happy trails till we meet again.
Bravo, Lynn.
You guys, and yes, and Lynn, once again, thanks. It was absolutely terrific.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And we will see everybody now in October. For those, of course, the writing group will see you earlier. But until then, goodbye, buddy.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.